Welcome, dear friend, to Sleep Path, a space where your mind can soften and your breath can begin to slow. Tonight, we invite you on a quiet journey into the emerald heart of a South Indian jungle, where a monkey family lives in harmony beside a sacred temple. Here, the morning mist lingers in the trees, bells ring softly through the air, and life unfolds gently moment by moment. My name is your name, and it's my honor to guide you through this story tonight. But before we begin, I invite you to take a moment for yourself. This is your time, a time to let go of everything that came before today and everything that's still waiting in tomorrow. None of it needs you now. You are safe. You are held by the stillness of this moment, and you deserve rest. If you haven't already, go ahead and settle into a cozy, comfortable position. Let your body be supported. Let your mind begin to soften. Take a deep breath in through your nose and a long exhale through your mouth. Feel how your body responds. Feel the weight of your day begin to melt away. Inhale and exhale again. Slowly, gently. Now when you're ready, let your eyes close and trust that you don't need to do anything else. You've already arrived. All you have to do is listen, relax, and follow the path into a night of peaceful sleep. Let's begin. The sky was still dark when the first sigh of breeze touched the treetops. It was not yet morning. Not quite, but the jungle knew. Even before the sun lifted its golden eyelid, even before the birds dared their first call, the leaves trembled gently as if whispering, "It's time." High above the forest floor, nestled in the cradling arms of a thick, ancient tree, a small family of monkeys slept. Their bodies curled into one another like knots of woven thread, tails coiled, fingers clutched, breathing in unison with the trees themselves. The tree was a giant, one of the oldest in the jungle, with bark textured like elephant skin and roots that twisted deep into the earth. Its crown spread wide across the sky, a green cathedral of waxy leaves and whispering branches. The monkeys had chosen this tree not only for safety, but for its comfort. It stood just far enough from the temple to hear its morning bells, but close enough to smell the incense that would rise later with the dawn. Here in this sanctuary of wood and wind, they waited for the light. The oldest of the monkeys, a male with a scar above his eye, was the first to stir. His movements were small, barely perceptible, a stretch of the fingers, a flick of the ear. His eyes remained closed, but within, he already sensed the warmth climbing the horizon. Beside him, two younger monkeys, siblings perhaps, shifted slightly in their sleep, tucked under their mother's protective arms. Her breath was deep and slow. One tiny paw clutched the fur on her chest, the other hung loosely, swinging with each breath she took. Above them, the leaves were still. But if you looked closely, you could see a soft glow emerging, not from a source, not from the sun itself, but from the air, as if the light was being breathed in through every leaf and branch. Then came the first sound. Not from the monkeys, not from the trees, but from the air itself. A low coo of a bird hidden in the branches, then another, then the rising chatter of wings, a rustle of feathers, the jungle beginning its slow motion stretch into morning. The old monkey opened his eyes. They were soft and amber-colored, reflecting the faintest shimmer of daybreak. He did not move yet. Just watched the sky change from deep blue to lavender, then to that strange, almost invisible gray that comes before all light. A breeze wandered through the canopy. tugging at the leaves with delicate fingers. It carried with it a scent of wet bark, damp soil, and the distant sweetness of temple flowers. Still curled in sleep, the monkey turned his head slightly and blinked. His eyes swept across the canopy, scanning each branch, each leaf, every tiny movement that might signal change. There, a flicker, not of danger, but of life. A tiny insect buzzing past, a dewdrop falling, a cluster of orchids opening ever so slowly. Below, the forest remained cloaked in silence. The undergrowth was dark and dense, but here, above the world, the monkeys were alone with the sky. The youngest of them, a small female with wide eyes and a nervous energy, opened her eyes with a soft blink. She did not make a sound. She looked up, saw the canopy above, and then tucked her head into her mother's chest again. It was a ritual, this quiet hour, a time for nothing, for stillness. No one spoke, no one climbed. Even the wind seemed to tiptoe. This was the hour when the jungle listened, and slowly it began to hum. A soft rustle of branches, the flutter of wings, the chirp of an early frog. Each sound entered like a note in a lullaby being sung backward, from the end of night toward the beginning of day. The old monkey stood. He stretched his long limbs across the branch, his tail curling gently behind him, like a question mark. He sniffed the air. He knew the Swami's bell would ring soon. The sound would echo through the jungle, drawing every creature to attention, some with joy, some with reverence. But for now, it was only the tree, the breeze, and the breath of the monkeys waiting for the light. One by one, the others began to wake, not suddenly, but like petals opening, softly, gradually. The mother shifted her weight, gently unwrapping her arms from her sleeping children. She groomed the fur behind their ears with careful, loving motions. Another monkey stretched, yawned, then rubbed its eyes with tiny fists. A tail curled, a branch creaked, and the family began their silent, sleepy ballet. The sun had not yet risen, but the air shimmered, not with heat, but with possibility. A day was about to begin, and in this sacred stillness the monkeys waited, not with impatience, but with grace. They knew the world would wake in its own time. So they sat and breathed and watched the sky change from ink to light. There is a moment in the jungle just after the breath of dawn when silence begins to break. Not suddenly, but softly, as though the forest were composing a lullaby in reverse. It begins far away with a sound so delicate it might be mistaken for wind. But it's not wind, it's wings. Tiny, shimmering wings of insects stirring from their leafy shelters, hovering in golden air. Then a second note joins, the call of a bird, low and slow. One tone, then silence, then two, then many. Each sound rising like a droplet in an unseen fountain of life. From the treetops to the underbrush, the jungle awakens like an orchestra tuning its instruments. Each call is a chord, each rustle a rhythm, and together they begin the morning song. The monkeys remained quiet at first, absorbing the shift. Their ears twitched in unison, turning towards each sound, and not with fear, but with recognition. This was their music, their forest, their hour. A lizard darted across a branch nearby, its tiny feet barely making a sound. A pair of birds burst into laughter-like trills, flitting from one tree to another. Beneath the canopy, the shadows moved, not creatures, but light, dappled, soft, filtering through the leaves in golden streams that danced like water. The baby monkey with the wide eyes sat up completely now, stretching one skinny leg, then the other. She looked at her family, still slow and gentle in their morning ways, and then up into the sky, which had turned from lavender to a pale honey yellow. A low hum began to roll through the forest floor. Insects swarming, beetles dragging themselves over bark. A frog let out a great croak as if to declare, "This day belongs to us now." The jungle answered with rustling branches, with chirps and clicks, with the high tinkling of dew dripping from leaf to leaf like nature's wind chimes. From a nearby grove, the first bell rang, a single clear tone, bright and round and floating. It was the Swami's bell. The old monkey lifted his head. He blinked slowly and his ears tilted toward the sound. His body didn't move, but his breath deepened. It was time. Not to rush. The monkeys never rushed. But to be aware. Because the bell was not just a bell, it was a signal, a symbol. It meant warmth was coming, and fruit, and prayer, and the low melodic chant that echoed across the trees like a river of voice. In the canopy, everything responded. The leaves turned like listening ears. The birds grew quieter. The air seemed to lean toward the sound. The baby monkey chirped, a tiny, involuntary sound, barely louder than a breeze through a blade of grass. Her mother turned to her and groomed her softly, pulling bits of leaf from her fur and stroking her spine with a rhythmic hand. From a neighboring tree, another family of monkeys called out. Not words, no, but greeting sounds. A chorus of familiarity. The old monkey replied with a short hoot, and the sounds rippled outward, echoing through the forest like greetings between neighbors over a shared morning fence. And then the temple's chant began. Low, steady, calm. The voice of the Swami rising with the day like a tether to the divine. The monkeys didn't understand the words, not in the way humans do, but they felt them, felt their weight, their warmth, their meaning. And so they sat, still for just a while longer, wrapped in the melody of jungle life. A cicada began its song, long and unwavering, a thread of sound that tied the canopy to the roots. The sunlight grew brighter. It lit the fine hairs on the monkeys' backs. It kissed the moss on the branches. It dripped, drop by drop, into the deep wells of green all around them. The forest was awake, but not chaotic, not loud. Everything moved with grace. Even the tiniest insect flew with intention. Even the wind had a rhythm, and the monkeys were part of that rhythm. Not above it, not separate. I guess they were breath within breath, sound within sound, and so they waited, not because they had to, but because this moment was perfect. The song of the jungle was still being written, and the monkeys, like every leaf, every branch, every soft beam of sun, were instruments. The sun arrived, not as a shout, but as a whisper, a gentle breath rising beyond the treetops, pouring warm light through a curtain of green. It kissed the edges of the jungle softly at first, not with heat, but with color. Golden threads began to stitch the leaves into patches of gleaming light. The morning had opened its eyes. The oldest monkey moved first. He arched his back, stretching from his fingers to the tip of his tail. In one long, slow, delicious motion, every muscle seemed to hum with the rhythm of life. He yawned widely, a silent exhale that curled out into the sunlit air. A few branches below, the young ones stirred. The smallest one blinked rapidly, rubbing her eyes with the backs of her tiny hands before flopping backward into a playful tumble of limbs and fur. The mother monkey turned, reaching out with a long arm to catch her tumbling daughter. Just before she rolled off the branch, she smiled, if monkeys could smile, and began grooming the child's fur with slow, deliberate strokes. Above them, a younger male monkey leapt lightly to a neighboring branch, his body bending like a bow. He dangled upside down for a moment, his tail coiled tightly around a vine, watching the world sparkle below him. The tree itself seemed to stretch. Leaves tilted toward the light. Twigs reached upward, pulling sunlight into their veins. Even the bark looked warmer. The monkeys began their morning ritual of movement, not hurried, never hurried, but fluid, a practiced dance of limbs and grace. One by one they rose from their sleeping spots, their bodies unwinding from rest like paper lanterns, gently unfolding. The young ones bounced, they hopped and swung, leaping between branches with bursts of joy that needed no explanation. They climbed the way only monkeys can, using hands, feet, and tails as if the trees were extensions of their own bodies. Every leap was a game, every branch a new possibility, and yet there was quiet discipline to their motion. The adults kept watchful eyes. No monkey wandered too far, no leap was careless. The sun continued to rise, bathing the canopy in full light now. Shadows shrank. The mist that clung to the trees began to fade, lifting like a veil from a sleeping bride. Somewhere deep in the forest, a loud call rang out. A series of whoops and chirps from another monkey troop. The family paused to listen. The call was not aggressive. It was a morning announcement. "We're awake too." The old monkey responded with a short call of his own. Then silence returned, punctuated only by the chatter of birds and the occasional flutter of wings. One young monkey, still drowsy, lay flat along a branch, his arms and legs dangling on either side like ribbons. A sibling climbed over him, not out of rudeness, but because every surface was shared. The morning was still soft. Though light streamed through the canopy, the air retained a coolness that clung to the leaves and whispered in the branches. The mother sat with her youngest in her lap, teaching her to pick at the tiny bugs in her fur, to search, to sort, to be gentle. It was not just cleaning, it was bonding. It was knowledge passed through fingers, generation after generation. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew stronger than before, shaking a few loose leaves from the tree. They drifted downward in a slow, spiraling dance, caught in the breeze like golden feathers. The monkeys followed them with their eyes. No one reached for them. It was enough just to watch. Then came a scent. Faint but familiar smoke, sweet, spicy, the unmistakable aroma of incense rising from the temple nearby. The old monkey perked up. He stood tall on the branch, nose tilted slightly upward, eyes focused on the direction of the scent. The time was drawing near. Soon the Swami would appear. Soon the bell would ring again, and breakfast, bananas. The young monkeys didn't think of rituals. They thought of taste, of adventure, of the joy of the next moment. But the older ones, they remembered more. They remembered nice seasons of plenty and of less. They remembered rains and drought, and they knew a banana in the morning light was not just a gift, it was grace. So they moved slowly now, stretching again, limbs loose and ready. A few leapt upward into the sunlit crown of the tree, pushing through the bright green leaves to bask in full sunlight like cats on a windowsill. Others stayed below, grooming, preparing, feeling the rhythm of the day take shape. In that moment, with the sunlight warm on their backs, the scent of the temple rising in the breeze, and the hush of the jungle all around them, they were exactly where they were meant to be, not waiting, not rushing, just being. and being was more than enough. The temple bell rang again once, then again after a long pause, as if the jungle itself were breathing in between the notes. The sound floated like a ribbon through the canopy, carried by the wind and softened by the leaves. The monkeys froze, not in fear, but in reverence. There was something different about this bell, not its tone. That was always the same, round and golden and ancient. But the timing, it meant he was coming, the Swami, the one in orange robes whose footsteps were softer than moss, whose hands always held bananas, and whose eyes were filled with quiet understanding. The jungle seemed to pause. No, not completely. The birds still chirped, the insects still hummed. But there was a subtle shift, like the silence before a melody begins again, like the hush between inhale and exhale. The monkeys didn't speak. They rarely did at moments like these. Even the youngest ones, usually bouncing and climbing, sat still, tails twitching in anticipation. The mother monkey cradled her smallest child, rocking ever so slightly. Her eyes were fixed on a spot beyond the trees, towards the temple's edge where the Swami would soon appear. The father, older and grayer, perched upright, his gaze alert yet calm. He'd seen the Swami many times before, dozens of mornings, hundreds of bananas, but still each time felt sacred. Below the tree, the forest floor remained hidden in dappled shade. Only the thinnest strands of sunlight reached the ground, weaving golden patterns on the earth like a painter brushing light onto canvas. The monkeys shifted positions. One adjusted his grip on the branch. Another leaned closer to her sibling. None of them wanted to miss the first glimpse. Somewhere, a breeze stirred the tall grasses beyond the temple wall. It moved through the courtyard and lifted a small cloud of dust, which sparkled like gold in the morning light. And then a sound. Footsteps, soft but certain, measured, unrushed. The monkeys straightened, not all the way, but enough. Their ears perked, their eyes sharpened. There was no surprise in them, only recognition. The Swami stepped into view. He was barefoot, as always. His robes, a faded orange, caught the wind like the petals of a marigold flower. He moved with grace, not hurried, not slow, but with purpose. In his hands, he carried a large, shallow bowl. From it rose the sweet, earthy scent of ripe bananas. Behind him trailed a thin wisp of smoke from a stick of incense tucked between his fingers. It curled upward, a ribbon of scent and flame, a silent prayer in motion. The monkeys watched. Some leaned forward on their branches, others tilted their heads. None made a sound. It wasn't time yet. The Swami reached the stone platform at the center of the temple courtyard. He placed the bowl down carefully, as though it were filled with more than fruit, as though it carried something sacred. He stood silently for a moment, eyes closed, facing the rising sun. And he began to chant, low, rhythmic, a murmur that felt older than the trees. It filled the air like water in a basin, gently reaching every corner of the temple, the forest, the sky. The monkeys stayed still. Even the youngest one, who moments ago had been climbing with wild delight, now crouched beside her mother, eyes wide, ears listening. They didn't know the words, but they felt the energy. The vibrations moved through their bodies, not as sound alone, but as warmth, as peace, as permission. The old monkey, scar above his brow, let out a short, breathy sound, a signal that the wait was over. But no one rushed, not yet. There was still a moment to observe, to witness, to absorb the quiet magic of a man offering food, not as charity, but as companionship. The Swami opened his eyes. He smiled as though he could feel them watching. He did not call them. He never did. But the monkeys knew. They always knew. One by one, they shifted closer on the branches, tails poised, limbs ready, not out of greed, not out of hunger alone, but out of gratitude, out of rhythm. The kind of rhythm that can only be built between beings who trust each other, even without words. And so they waited for one final breath, the silence after the chant, the stillness before the leap. The Swami stood quietly, hands resting by his side. The bananas waited in the bowl, yellow and warm under the sun. And all around, the jungle held its breath. The signal had been given, not by words nor by command, but by stillness. And from that stillness, movement began. The elder monkey shifted first, his weight adjusting on the wide, moss-covered branch. His body stretched forward like a bow drawn in silence, coiled with quiet energy, ready to be released. Then, with a grace that defied gravity, he leapt, his limbs unfurled mid-air, tail sweeping behind him like a silk ribbon, and for a brief moment he became nothing but motion. Weightless, effortless, a shadow flying between worlds. He landed with the softest touch on the branch ahead. It did not creak, it welcomed him. The rest followed one by one, like stars flickering into a night sky. They moved without sound, without hesitation. Each leap was precise, each swing deliberate. Their bodies understood the rhythm of trees, as if they had memorized the map of branches before they were even born. From one tree to the next, they glided through the canopy, sometimes low and close, sometimes high among the thin vines where only the wind had touched before. The jungle was their bridge, their cathedral, their breath. Leaves brushed their fur like blessings. Sunlight splintered through the gaps, painting their backs with flickering gold. Even the air seemed to hold its hands open, cradling them with the softness of something ancient and sacred. The younger monkeys moved with joy, leaping, swinging, twisting midair, just to feel the freedom. They giggled in soft chirps, their tails wrapping around slender branches before propelling forward again. But the older ones, they moved with a different kind of grace, not slow, but mindful, as though every movement were a bow, a prayer, a step along a path they honored deeply. Below them, the jungle murmured. Birds fluttered from branch to branch, but none scattered. Insects continued their buzzing hymns, but none protested. The forest made space. It always did. For this family, for this ritual, for this sacred journey. They passed trees with wide leaves like upturned palms. They darted through bamboo clusters that swayed gently with their motion. They soared above thorny thickets and slipped beneath low-hanging vines. At one point they paused on a large banyan tree, its roots spilling downward like a frozen waterfall. From here they could see the edge of the temple courtyard. The structure rose above the ground, its pastel walls glowing in the sun. The steps leading to the inner sanctum were swept clean, lined with tiny oil lamps that would burn again come dusk. But now, in the morning light, the temple waited, calm and open, a mirror to the jungle itself. The Swami stood by the platform still, his chant complete, his hands folded before him. He didn't look up. He didn't need to. He knew they were coming, and they were close now. The elder monkey leapt again, and the others followed, not in chaos, but in rhythm, like a line of dancers, like a procession. Their path twisted left, then curved down, A final cluster of branches lay ahead, leading directly above the courtyard's edge. The last leap was longer, a broad stretch over a small gap where two trees no longer touched. The youngest hesitated. She stood on the branch, tail twitching, eyes wide. Her mother waited behind her, not pushing, not rushing. The elder stood on the other side, his body still and steady, like a lighthouse. The baby monkey breathed in and jumped. Her small body lifted into the air, fur catching the light, fingers reaching, heart open. She landed. Not perfectly, but safely. The elder helped steady her, and she beamed in that special way only young beings can, where the joy is too big for the body and has to be released as sound. The mother caught up, scooping her gently into her arms. They rested there for a beat, wrapped in light and breath. Then the family moved again. One more tree, one more branch, and then they arrived. They perched in the massive tree that stood just above the temple's edge. Its branches curved out like open arms, cradling the whole family in their embrace. From this height, they could see the offering bowl, the incense, still curling into the air, and the calm of the man who had waited just for them. But they did not rush down, not yet, because the journey, the sacred dance through the canopy, was as much a part of the ritual as the meal itself. And so they rested for a moment, breathing in the quiet, letting the air cool their fur, and watching as the world stopped for them. A sacred path through sacred trees had brought them here, and they were ready. From the highest branch of the banyan tree, just beyond the last leafy veil of green, the temple came into view. Not all at once, not with fanfare or suddenness, but slowly, gracefully, like a secret revealing itself only to those who waited patiently. At first it was the color, a soft pink faded by sun and time, wrapped around the outermost tier like a shawl, then blue. The kind of blue found in river stones and dragonfly wings, then saffron like marigolds blooming in the morning light. These colors did not shout. They hummed, like the chants that once echoed through the stone corridors, like the wind as it passed over carved rooftops. The monkeys leaned forward, heads tilted, eyes wide. Though they had seen it every day of their lives, the temple always felt new. Its shape rose upward in layers like a wedding cake sculpted by the gods. Broad at the base, narrowing toward the top, each tier etched with divine hands. Intricate carvings covered every surface. Elephants with their trunks lifted skyward, dancers frozen mid-step, eyes that watched without blinking, lips curved into secretive smiles. Between the statues, symbols danced, spirals, lotus petals, celestial circles, etched so delicately that even the monkeys from their distance could sense their age. The temple didn't dominate the landscape. It didn't conquer it. It rose from it as though the earth itself had shaped it from stone and silence. Around its base, the ground was swept clean. The dust, golden and soft, was packed down like flour. Tiny footprints traced faint paths from doorway to altar to shrine. And just beyond the outer walls stood the Swami. He was still as though woven into the scene. The bowl of bananas sat beside him. The incense stick burned on, its spiral of smoke threading upward into the canopy where it met the monkey's breath. The scent was heavy now, sweet, smoky, tinged with something floral, perhaps jasmine, perhaps something older. The monkeys inhaled deeply, not just through their noses, but through their skin, their fur, their memories. For them, the temple wasn't just stone, it was rhythm, it was offering, it was home. Not in the way the tree was home, but in the way music is home to a melody. The smallest monkey stood upright on her branch. She gripped a nearby vine for balance and stared down at the temple courtyard. Her ears twitched. Not from sound, but from sensation. She could feel the calm. It radiated from the stones, from the swami, from the hush in the leaves. She looked to her mother as if to ask, "Is it time?" But the mother's gaze remained steady, fixed on the platform below. "Not yet. First, watch. Always watch." The elder monkey moved along the branch, stopping at a spot that gave the clearest view. He crouched low, his fingers curled gently over the bark, his tail draped like a pendant behind him. From here, he could see everything. The courtyard was empty of people. Only the swami remained, and even he seemed like part of the architecture, as motionless and timeless as the stone pillars behind him. The elder blinked slowly. He remembered the first time he'd seen this place from above. He had been young, reckless, full of leaps without landing. And then he had seen the temple, felt it, and everything had changed. The temple had a pulse, not like a heartbeat, but like a memory being shared again and again. And today, this morning, that memory felt especially alive. Perhaps it was the light or the way the vines draped like garlands across the temple's walls. Perhaps it was the silence so complete it felt like a song in itself. Or perhaps it was the way the air shimmered. Yes, that was it, the shimmer. The subtle, almost invisible vibration that danced above the stone surface, like heat, like spirit, like something that had never left. The monkeys remained in the tree, not because they couldn't descend, but because they wouldn't. Not yet. The descent was not random, it was ritual, and rituals required rhythm. The swami moved now, just slightly. He turned toward the altar, placed both hands together, and bowed, not to anyone, not for anyone, but with everyone. The monkeys, too, seemed to lower their posture. Not deliberately, not as mimicry, but as instinct, as alignment. Below, the incense coil had burned down halfway, its ashes gathering like snow on the corner of the stone slab. A sudden breeze caught the ash, lifting it gently, then letting it fall in a small swirling spiral. It landed beside a carved elephant with a gem pressed into its forehead. The youngest monkey's eyes sparkled. She saw the stone elephant. She saw the gem. She reached out as if she could touch it from here. The mother gently pulled her back, wrapping her arms around her once more, still watching, still waiting. The temple shimmered in the sun. It did not move, it did not need to. It existed in stillness. And in that stillness it sang. And above it in the trees, the monkeys listened, not with ears, but with being. The incense had burned low, its final curl of smoke dissolving into the canopy, and the air, warm with sunlight and scent, held a silence so gentle it felt like breath. And then the swami moved. With the care of someone tending to sacred things, he bent slightly at the waist and lifted the bowl of bananas. They were perfect, small, ripe, sun-warmed. Their skins were just beginning to spot, the kind of sweet readiness that animals understand without needing to be told. He stepped forward, and not rushing, not pausing, and placed the bowl on the smooth surface of the stone platform. The offering was made, but it was more than fruit. It was rhythm, it was relationship. It was a vow repeated silently each morning between a man and the forest that surrounded him. The monkeys stirred. The elder stood first. His long arms reached forward, grasping a thicker branch. He shifted his weight to the edge where the tree leaned slightly toward the courtyard. A younger male joined him, then the mother. Then, one by one, the rest of the family lined up in a graceful arc along the branches, tails curled, eyes locked on the bowl below. Still, no one leapt. There was a final moment, a breath held in common, where jungle and temple, human and monkey, past and present, all stood still. Then, with one smooth bound, the elder monkey dropped from the branch. He landed silently on the low ledge of the temple wall, then onto the platform's edge, his feet barely making a sound on the warm stone. The others followed, not all at once, but in rhythm. A wave of motion, each monkey gliding into place like dancers joining a sacred performance. The young ones landed lightly, tails swinging like metronomes. The mothers arrived more slowly, guiding their babies down branch by branch until everyone stood together in the temple's embrace. The Swami did not move. He did not speak. He simply watched, his expression calm and kind, as though seeing friends arrive at the door of a long-awaited gathering. The monkeys surrounded the bowl, not with chaos, but with care. They did not push, they did not shout, they did not grab as if the world might run out. Instead, they reached gently. One long arm dipped into the bowl with fingers that moved like water, selecting a banana and peeling it in one clean motion. Another monkey held the peel for a moment, examining it before dropping it neatly to the side of the platform. The youngest monkeys chattered excitedly, their high-pitched squeaks breaking the silence like bells. They tugged playfully at each other's fur, stole peels, nibbled at half-eaten fruit, then darted away laughing in the only way monkeys laugh, with joy that moves the entire body. The mother monkey peeled a banana slowly. She broke it into small chunks and fed her baby, pressing the soft fruit into tiny hands that trembled with anticipation. The elder monkey sat off to the side now, his meal complete. He watched the others with relaxed eyes, his posture loose but dignified. From time to time, he reached into the bowl again, not for himself, but to pass fruit to a slower member of the family. It was a feast, but it was not gluttony. It was gratitude made visible. Each bite was a thank you. Each shared piece was a promise. High above them, a few birds circled the temple dome, gliding on warm currents of air. Their wings shone silver in the sun, casting fleeting shadows across the stone tiles. The courtyard filled with soft sounds, chewing, rustling, chirping, the occasional plop of a banana peel hitting the ground, but nothing loud, nothing jarring. Even the feast had its tempo. The Swami stepped back, giving them space. He sat at the edge of the courtyard, legs crossed, hands resting on his knees. He did not watch them like an owner. He watched them like a witness, like someone who knew that feeding a creature was not an act of dominance, but of communion. The sun climbed higher, casting a brighter light over the scene. The temple shimmered in full color now. Pinks and blues, greens and golds, all wrapped in the movement of fur and tail and shared contentment. The youngest monkeys finished quickly. They leapt onto a low wall, dangling from vines and swinging between pillars. Their play was not disruptive. It was celebration. Their joy was the second offering of the day. The mothers cleaned their babies, pulling bits of banana from their cheeks, grooming them with slow fingers. One monkey took the last banana. She did not eat it. She placed it beside the bowl and walked away. Perhaps for later, perhaps for another. The bowl, now mostly empty, rested in the sunlight. Its shadow stretched across the stone, a reminder that even joy leaves a trace. And in that courtyard, with no audience but the wind, a family of monkeys sat full, satisfied, and completely, beautifully at peace. The meal was over, but the moment lingered. Not because there was more to eat. The bananas had been peeled, shared, devoured. Not because there was anything left to do. There was none. It lingered because some moments do. They don't end with action. They end with stillness. One by one, the monkeys began to move. Not away, but upward, back into the trees. The elder rose first, his long arm reaching toward a familiar branch just beyond the temple's edge. He didn't look back, but he didn't need to. He knew the others would follow. With practiced ease, he pulled himself upward, limbs flowing like water, tail curling gracefully around a vine as he hoisted his body into the green. The temple disappeared beneath him, replaced by shadow and leaf, but he knew exactly where it was. He could feel it below, solid, ancient breathing. The younger monkeys followed. Some bounced up the wall in short hops. Others clung to their mothers as they scaled the low courtyard trees with slow determination. The Swami remained seated, watching them rise into the canopy. He offered no words, no gestures, only presence. At a certain height, the monkeys paused. They chose a tree just far enough to see the temple in its fullness, but close enough to feel its breath in the air that still carried the scent of incense. From this height, the view was sacred. The temple courtyard lay quiet below, a mosaic of stone, sunlight, and the lingering shadows of earlier movement. Banana peels scattered like golden leaves. The bowl, now empty, gleamed softly where the light hit its rim. Above, the sky was clear, a wide stretch of pale blue with a few feathery clouds drifting without urgency. The elder settled onto a broad branch, his back straight, hands resting on his knees like the Swami himself. He gazed at the temple, not as a tourist might, but as someone who belonged. There was no need for speech. This was not a time for noise, it was a time for being. The youngest monkeys curled into the crooks of the tree, nuzzling into their mother's fur. Their bellies were full, their energy momentarily quieted by the warmth of the sun and the rhythm of their breath. One monkey dozed off, chin resting on a knotted branch, eyes fluttering like tiny moths trying to stay awake. Another picked gently at her sister's fur, not to clean, not out of habit, just to touch, just to connect. The air was warm now, not hot, just thick with light and something older, something that hummed through the trees, through the stone, through the monkey's bones. It was memory, not the kind that names things, but the kind that remembers without needing words. A butterfly landed nearby, its wings opened and closed in perfect rhythm, as though bowing in silence. No one moved to touch it. It stayed for a moment, then lifted again, disappearing into the canopy like a sigh. Below, the Swami stood. He dusted his robe with slow movements, retrieved the empty bowl, and walked toward the temple steps. The incense had burned down completely now. Only ash remained, spiraled delicately like a forgotten signature on stone. As the Swami stepped into the temple, he paused and looked upward, not searching, not calling, just acknowledging. The elder monkey blinked slowly in return. 2 lives, 2 paths intersecting in the quiet above and below. The Swami disappeared inside. The temple was quiet again. And in that quiet, the jungle pulsed, not with noise, but with knowing. The monkeys remained in their tree. Some watched, some rested, some played in slow motion. Time had softened. It no longer marched. It flowed, as though the world had taken a breath, a long, slow inhale, and was waiting to exhale again. A soft breeze stirred the branches. Leaves shifted, casting moving shadows across fur and bark and sky. The elder monkey closed his eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to feel. The warmth of the sun, the fullness of his belly, the scent of incense lingering on the morning wind. He did not wish for more. This branch, this sky, this moment was enough. Above the temple, the sky stretched wider, the clouds thinned, and somewhere deeper in the forest, the jungle began to stir once more. But for now, the monkeys watched. Still, grateful, whole. The temple faded behind them like a dream one forgets upon waking. Not entirely gone, but softened, folded into the fabric of the day like incense clinging to fur. The monkeys began to move. Not all at once, not in haste, but with the subtle momentum of a breeze pushing open a curtain. From their resting tree they turned eastward toward the mango groves, a familiar maze of branches and scent that wrapped around the temple's edge like a protective arm. The first branch was wide and steady, its bark warm beneath their fingers. It belonged to a mango tree older than any of them, its limbs thick with stories. They crossed it quietly, the elder leading, his tail brushing against low-hanging vines. The leaves here were broad, deep green and dappled with yellow specks where the sun filtered through. Some were curled at the edges as if listening, and everywhere, mangoes, dangling in clusters, some the size of small stones, others round and plump, their skins glowing in shades of green, amber, and gold. The air was rich with fragrance, not overwhelming but sweet, like fruit warming in the sun, or sugar melting slowly into memory. The younger monkeys squealed with delight. They leapt ahead, tails twirling behind them like ribbons in flight. One reached for a mango and bit into it too early, the fruit firm and tart. She shivered, made a face, and tossed it to the ground, where it rolled into the tall grass below. Her sibling laughed, a sound more like a squeak than a chuckle, grabbed another. This one was perfect. It gave beneath his fingers. The skin peeled easily. The flesh inside was golden and soft, sticky with juice. He ate messily, his cheeks smeared with sweetness. The elder monkey sat quietly nearby, his eyes scanning the grove not for food, but for presence. He liked this part of the morning, the movement, the fruit, the children's laughter. But mostly he liked the shade. The mango trees created a green cathedral, tall, leafy arches with light pouring through like stained glass. Insects buzzed lazily in the warmth. Bees floated near the blossoms. A lizard scurried along a low branch, unbothered by the sudden parade of fur and chatter. Below, the earth was soft. Mangoes that had fallen lay in golden clusters, some half-eaten by other creatures, some still untouched. From above, the grove looked like a painting, not perfect, but alive. One young monkey tried to carry 2 mangoes at once. He struggled, arms wrapped around the fruit like treasures. But the mangoes were slippery, and after 3 steps, they tumbled from his grasp and disappeared into the underbrush. He looked up, wide-eyed, and shrugged. There was always another tree, always more fruit. The mothers sat together on a broad branch that curved like a hammock. They groomed their young, passing bits of mango between hands and mouths like prayers shared without sound. Sticky fingers, soft fur, the smell of sun-warmed fruit. These were the blessings of the grove. The breeze picked up, shaking a few leaves loose from the canopy above. They drifted downward, spiraling like slow-moving birds. One leaf landed on the elder's shoulder. He did not brush it away. He He let it rest there, a quiet badge of presence. As they moved deeper into the grove, the trees became thinner, more spaced apart. The light grew stronger, the breeze cooler. They passed a small clearing where the grass was shorter and tiny white flowers bloomed beneath the trees. The youngest monkey paused there, drawn by the brightness. She sat for a moment in the flowers, watching a bee hover over a fallen mango. She reached out slowly, not to touch, but to feel the hum in the air between her hand and the winged rhythm of the bee's flight. Then, hearing the others move on, she stood and followed. The path through the mango grove was not marked. No signs, no roads. Just memory, just scent, just instinct. The monkeys knew where they were going without needing to decide. They followed the sunlight, they followed the shadows, they followed each other, and the grove welcomed them. Not as guests, but as part of itself, as branches, as breath, as beings who belonged. By the time they reached the far edge, the monkeys were quieter. Their energy had shifted, not gone, just softened. Their bellies were full, their hearts light, and before them, beyond the final mango tree, the jungle opened once again, ready for the next chapter of this peaceful day. Beyond the mango grove, where the trees grew sparse and the earth dipped gently downward, a village waited, still tucked in the folds of morning. The monkeys moved quietly now, their bodies slow and steady, as if the sweetness of fruit and the warmth of the sun had lulled them into a gentle dream walk. The first sign of the village was not a building, but a scent. Smoke, thin and woody, not from fire, but from breakfast. Somewhere ahead, someone had stirred hot coals, placed a metal pot on top, and awakened a fragrance that drifted upward like memory. Boiled rice, spiced lentils, something sweet hidden underneath. The elder monkey paused on a low branch, his gaze sweeping forward. And there it was, the village, a scattering of homes, each shaped like a small box of clay and color. Walls painted in turquoise, powdery pink, muddy red, and pure white. Roofs of dry coconut palms slanted down in uneven lines, some patched with cloth, some blooming with moss. Between the houses were narrow paths, lined with stones and broken shells, leading nowhere in particular, but worn smooth by countless bare feet. The monkeys advanced cautiously, still among the trees, their shadows moving just above the rooftops. They didn't enter, they didn't need to. The view from above was enough. A woman stepped out from her doorway wearing a sari the color of mango skin. She carried a silver bowl under one arm and a broom in the other. With graceful, practiced movements, she swept the ground just outside her home, pushing away the night's dust to make space for the new day. Her long hair, thick and black, was braided down her back, tied with a single red thread. She didn't look up. She didn't need to. She too had done this dance before. From another house, the sound of a baby's cry, then the rustling of pots, the clink of metal on stone, the hum of life beginning again. A boy ran barefoot into the yard, carrying a wooden stick and chasing a chicken with no particular purpose. His laughter rang out, startling a few pigeons from the temple dome nearby. The monkeys watched, not with hunger, not with envy, but with a quiet curiosity. This world was different, structured, predictable, and yet just as alive. One young monkey climbed onto a slanted roof, perching atop a bundle of palm fronds. He looked down into a small courtyard where two women knelt near a basin, washing colorful fabrics. They dipped the cloth into soapy water, then slapped it against smooth stone with sharp, wet thwacks that echoed through the alleyways like a percussion beat. Water droplets sprayed into the air, catching sunlight and forming tiny rainbows that lasted only a breath. From a corner doorway, an elderly man emerged. He carried a clay cup of tea, steam rising in curls. His face was lined with time, his eyes gentle and inward. He sipped slowly, watching the sky as if it held an answer he already knew. The monkeys kept to the trees, stepping carefully along the edges of roofs and branches. Though they had passed through this village many times before, they always treated it like something sacred. Not because it was theirs, but because it wasn't. Respect, they had learned, was not taught in words. It was felt in stillness, in patience, in knowing when to watch and when to move on. A dog barked in the distance, and the monkeys paused, not from fear, but from habit. Then silence returned, and they continued on. The mothers carried their babies close to their chests. The young ones played quietly. No wild leaps, no loud chatter. Even play in this place was gentle. A basket of drying chilies sat in the sun, bright red against the white wall like embers waiting to speak. A pair of crows cawed from a fence post. Goats shifted in their pens. The world was waking in layers, and the monkeys, visitors to this rhythm, moved respectfully through the unfolding. At the far edge of the village, where the last houses leaned into the trees, stood a tall coconut palm. It rose above the rooftops like a sentinel, its fronds swaying in time with something ancient. The elder monkey stopped here. He placed a hand on its rough trunk, then looked back one final time. The village pulsed behind him. Alive, quiet, self-contained. He blinked slowly, then leapt upward into the trees beyond. The others followed. A line of shadows, passing gently from one world into another. And the village, now fully awake, carried on as if nothing had passed through, as if everything had. The rooftops shimmered under the growing light of morning, each tile warming slowly as the sun climbed higher into the sky. The monkeys danced above them, not wildly, not like invaders, but like travelers passing along a path made of clay and air. Their footsteps were soft, barely audible. Only the light thump of padded palms, the tap of a tail brushing sun-dried straw. From below, a pair of wide eyes watched. A child, perhaps 5, perhaps 6, stood barefoot in a doorway, his fingers curled around the edge of the frame, his mouth slightly open. He'd seen monkeys before, but not like this. Not so many, not so quiet. He raised one hand slowly, unsure whether to wave or simply point. The youngest monkey, catching sight of him, tilted her head and blinked. She made no move to run. She only stared back, curious, gentle. The boy smiled, then disappeared into the house, calling out in excited whispers. The monkey lingered a moment, then followed her family, leaping across a narrow alley onto the next roof. Below them, the village stirred. Women stepped into courtyards to hang wet clothes on thick ropes. Steam rose from clay pots. A cow shifted lazily in its shelter, flicking its tail at a cloud of flies. The monkeys stayed close to the rooftops, never touching the ground. They respected invisible lines, not drawn by fences, but by rhythm. The elder monkey paused at a raised ledge, surveying the scene. Ahead, more houses, more rooftops, a small square where children were beginning to play in the dust. A group of girls chased each other in circles, their long braids flying behind them, feet bare, laughter unfiltered. The monkeys watched from above, tails flicking in amusement. One boy kicked a ball too high. It soared up and landed on a low roof. The monkeys froze. The boy pointed. The others stared, Would the monkeys take it? Would they touch it? One young monkey climbed cautiously toward it. He sniffed the ball, touched it once, then pushed it gently, letting it roll down the slanted roof and drop back into the street. The children erupted into cheers. The monkey grinned, or something like it, then darted away, his siblings chirping in delight. The rooftops shifted in shape as the monkeys moved forward, some flat and wide, others slanted steeply with slippery tiles that clicked underfoot. They leapt easily between gaps, balancing with tails and instinct. In one courtyard, a woman looked up as a shadow passed overhead. She raised a hand to shade her eyes and smiled softly. A monkey sat perched on a rooftop ledge, watching her. Their eyes met for a moment. No fear, no surprise, just a recognition. She nodded. He blinked, then both turned away. From a windowsill, a parrot squawked, its green feathers ruffling in annoyance or excitement. It was hard to tell. The monkeys paid it no mind. They moved onward, feet tapping rhythmically on the clay. Below them, the village was now fully alive. Footsteps echoed through alleyways, doors opened and closed, water splashed in stone basins, laughter chased shouts, shouts turned into songs, and still the monkeys moved, like a procession above the sky, like dancers tracing an old path across the ceiling of a waking world. One rooftop bore baskets of chilies drying under the sun. The monkeys avoided them, respectful of the heat, the spice, the invisible language of "don't touch." A dog barked from the ground, startled by their movement. The younger monkeys flinched. The mothers paused, but the elder gave one glance and they continued on. The dog quieted. Even its bark had no power here. At the far edge of the village, the rooftops gave way to a row of tall trees, palms, neem, and eucalyptus, their branches stretching toward the sky like open hands. The monkeys reached the final roof and paused. Below them, a woman lit a small fire with dried leaves. The smoke spiraled upward, crossing their path like a veil of memory. The youngest monkey stepped into the smoke, letting it curl around her. She stood still, eyes closed, as if tasting something invisible. Then she opened her eyes and ran forward, leaping into the trees. One by one, the rest followed, from the rooftops to the branches, from the world of people back into the arms of the forest. And the village, now fully awake, watched them go with quiet eyes, as if they were a part of its story, not every day, but today. And perhaps that was enough. The village softened behind them, its sounds thinning into distance, its rooftops now hidden beneath a veil of green. But still, signs of people lingered, not in stone or smoke, but in color. The monkeys had entered the outer ring of gardens, a space where earth met hand, where the jungle paused to admire what humans could grow when they listened to the soil. Here, the air was different, not thick with heat, but cool, carrying the scent of damp earth, fresh turmeric, and flower petals bruised by morning dew. They moved along narrow walls of clay and stone, their tails balancing above lines of marigolds planted in rows so straight they looked like prayers. In one garden, a woman knelt beside a bed of tulsi. She wore a deep violet sari, its edge tucked gracefully over one shoulder, her fingers stained with soil and sunlight. She did not look up, but the monkeys watched her. Her hands moved with reverence, pulling weeds not in frustration but with care, as if each root held a secret she needed to set free. Nearby, a sari hung on a line, bright yellow, bordered in red thread, billowing in the breeze like the wing of some sacred bird. It moved slowly at first, then fluttered fast, catching a gust of wind that carried its scent. Soap, rain, and something sweet the monkeys could not name. One young monkey reached toward it, but the elder gave a short sound, a gentle warning. Respect the cloth, respect the color. So they moved on. In another courtyard, a woman beat a rug against a stone. Each strike released a puff of dust, which caught the light like smoke from an invisible fire. Children laughed as they ran between trees, skirts swirling, feet bare, hands full of tamarind and mischief. The monkeys watched from above, sitting on a curved banyan branch, half in shadow, half in light. The youngest of the group held a mango leaf in her hand, not to eat but to wave, not at anyone, just at the world. Ahead the path narrowed. A thin corridor of trees and flowers formed a living tunnel, and beyond it, the jungle began again. But for now, they lingered. A woman hung more saris on a line, green, orange, deep indigo. They swayed like river currents in the air, each one whispering a story only the wind could understand. One sari slipped from the line, caught on a low bush. Before the woman noticed, a young monkey climbed down, grasped the edge with careful fingers, and lifted it upward, not to take, but to give back. The woman saw, she smiled, and the monkey leapt away. No words were spoken, none were needed. It was a small thing, but the morning had been made of small things. A banana shared, a gaze exchanged, a sari returned to the line, each one a thread in the quiet fabric of peace. The gardens thinned now, the path widened. More birds called from above, as if sensing the monkeys had stayed long enough. The breeze carried with it the chirp of crickets, the scent of neem leaves, and the whisper of clouds preparing for a noonday rest. The monkeys began to move again, past the drying herbs, past the lines of jasmine, past the last sari swaying like a flame in the breath of the world. They did not rush, they did not speak. They moved through the colors as if walking through a memory too beautiful to name. And then they were gone, back into the arms of the trees. The sound came first, not loud, not even sharp, just a hush like silk, being pulled gently across stone, a breath that moved sideways through the trees. A shimmer in the air that told the monkeys they were close. The river, not just any river, but theirs, the one they had followed since their earliest climbs, whose voice they recognized even before they saw it. The canopy ahead grew thinner, branches giving way to more sky than leaf, more light than shadow. And then, between two tall palms, they saw it, silver and smooth, winding through the land like a ribbon of memory. It flowed not with violence, but with purpose, a language of movement, older than voice, older than breath. The monkeys paused on the last sturdy branches before open air. Below, the river glimmered, shallow in parts, deep in pockets, its bed lined with smooth stones the color of tea leaves and bone. Caramel boulders broke the surface, their curves softened by centuries of passing water. Sunlight danced upon the ripples, each flash of light like a tiny heartbeat echoing in the monkeys' chests. A warm breeze moved across the water, carrying the scent of wet earth, lotus petals, and wood smoke. The elder monkey was the first to descend. He took his time, testing each branch as if descending into a memory, not just a space. He landed on a sun-warmed rock near the edge of the bank. It gave slightly beneath his weight, not in fear, but in welcome. The others followed. One by one, they stepped from tree to stone, stone to grass, fur brushing against reeds that swayed as if in prayer. At the water's edge, a cluster of wild mint grew. The youngest monkey bent low, inhaling deeply before dipping her fingers into the cool stream. The water kissed her hand, then flowed on, unbothered, unchanged, eternal. Further downstream, laughter, not monkey, human. A group of children stood knee-deep in the shallows, splashing water at each other with wild, free abandon. One boy held a wide leaf, like a boat, chasing it through the current as it twirled and bumped between small stones. Another girl cupped water in her hands, lifting it to the sky, as if offering it to the sun. Their voices rose in a melody only childhood could sing. High and tumbling, without beginning or end, the monkeys watched from a distance, not hiding, not intruding, just present. The mother monkeys sat on the lower rocks, their babies tucked close, tails curled around them like soft ropes. They dipped their hands into the water, bringing it to their mouths slowly, reverently, as if it were something sacred. It was. The elder moved farther out, stepping from stone to stone until he reached the middle of the river. There, a flat boulder sat just beneath the surface, its top slick with moss and warm from the sun. He lowered himself onto it, letting the water flow around him, over his legs, past his fingers. His eyes closed. He did not sleep. He listened. To the water, to the sky, to the quiet between sounds that said, "You're here, you've arrived." On the opposite bank, women had gathered. Their saris flowed in the breeze, saffron, lilac, emerald, each a banner of beauty against the muddy shore. They knelt by flat stones, washing clothes in rhythmic motion, soak, lift, slap, rinse, a ritual as old as the river itself. Their bangles clinked softly as they moved. Their hair glistened with river mist. Their laughter was low, like the murmur of roots beneath the ground. One woman paused, noticing the monkeys. She didn't startle. She didn't shoo them away. She smiled, then returned to her work. The monkeys remained where they were, some in the water, some on stones, some in the shade of trees where the grass was thick and damp. They didn't leap, they didn't shout. They were full of mangoes, of sunlight, of morning. Now they were simply being. Two young monkeys began to play, chasing each other across the shallow stones. Their feet splashed lightly, tails flying behind them like comets of fur. They didn't race to win, only to feel the chase. They darted between reeds, jumped from rock to rock, then collapsed together on the riverbank, breathing hard but grinning. A dragonfly zipped past, its wings glinting in the light. Another followed, then dozens, their bodies painted in blues, greens, and deep velvety blacks. They hovered and danced above the water like sparks from an invisible fire. The monkeys looked up, mesmerized. It was as if the river had lifted its laughter into the air and set it free on wings. Time slowed again. The sun was now high, but not harsh. The wind warm but soft. The river constant. And the monkeys still, not asleep, not gone, just here, together, at peace, by the river that always flowed, always waited, and always welcomed them home. The river sang in light, each ripple a whisper, each glint a melody. The air was thick with warmth now, but the kind that held you close rather than weighed you down. Above the glistening water, dragonflies flitted like brushstrokes on a canvas of sky and mist. The monkeys had settled into the shade, their bodies sprawled along rocks, still cool from the early morning. Some were grooming, others simply resting, eyes half-lidded, ears twitching at every breeze. And then The laughter returned. Not wild, not sudden, but rolling, bubbling up from the far bend in the river where children played among the stones. Their voices echoed like bird calls, high, shrill, free. The youngest monkey lifted her head. She tilted it to one side, ears forward, eyes blinking as if trying to see the sound itself. She rose slowly, padding forward on light feet, climbing a nearby branch for a better view. There they were, 3 children, barefoot, soaked, glowing with movement, 2 boys and 1 girl. The older boy stood in the water, holding a wide leaf like a shield, laughing as the younger girl splashed him. She scooped handfuls of water and flung them toward his chest, giggling as droplets caught the sun and scattered into a million silver shards. The second boy crouched low, watching a tiny fish dart between stones. His hand hovered over the surface, waiting for just the right moment to reach in. The monkeys watched with the stillness of statues, not intruding, not hidden, present, visible, accepted. The girl looked up. She saw them. Her eyes widened first with surprise, then softened into wonder. She smiled, a real, full smile, the kind that needed no language. She turned to the boys, pointed up into the trees. They followed her gaze, and for a moment all 3 children stood in water that sparkled like glass, staring into branches filled with fur and silence. The monkeys did not move. The children did not scream. No one ran. It was a moment suspended, a thread strung between species, between worlds, between breath. Then the girl did something unexpected. She reached into the folds of her dress and pulled out a piece of fruit. It was small, an overripe guava, soft with heat. She placed it gently on a stone near the water's edge, then stepped back, bare feet sinking slightly into the wet earth. The youngest monkey saw. She climbed down from her branch, slowly, tail swaying, eyes never leaving the children. The other monkeys stirred, but made no sound. They watched. The girl waited. The monkey approached the stone, one cautious step at a time. She sniffed the guava, tilted her head, then picked it up gently with both hands. She took a bite. Her eyes blinked. It was sweet. She looked at the girl. The girl beamed. Nothing else was needed. The monkey turned back and leapt lightly to the nearest branch, the guava still in her hand. The children clapped once, softly, as if not to disturb something fragile. Then they returned to their games, kicking water, chasing sunlight, laughing as they fell into the embrace of the river. The monkeys relaxed again. Even the elder from his perch high in the tamarind tree smiled in the way only old creatures do, with stillness. A smile of knowing, of remembering, of having seen enough mornings to understand that joy is sacred when it's shared without taking. The sun struck the surface of the river just right, cast in beams of gold across every stone, every ripple, every strand of wet hair and fur. A boy slipped and fell, laughing as he hit the water, sending a tall splash into the sky. The girl shrieked in delight, her dress clinging to her legs, her hair dripping. It was pure and fleeting and real, and the monkeys, they knew, not in words, not in stories, but in silence, in the language of watching, of witnessing, of being part of something without ever touching it. And as the river flowed on, carrying sun and shadow, so too did the morning, growing, glowing, shifting, softening. But for now there was laughter, there was light, and there was a moment shared between children and creatures in a world that forgot to be afraid. The water spoke in ripples. Soft and steady, it rolled over the smooth stones like a lullaby sung by the earth itself, a song with no beginning, no end, only rhythm. The monkeys moved toward the river's heart, where great boulders rose from the shallows like sleeping giants. Their surfaces, polished by decades of flow, were warm under the sun and slick where moss still clung. The elder monkey stepped first. He placed one hand on a rounded edge, tested its hold, and pulled himself onto the rock in one fluid motion. The others followed. One by one, they climbed and jumped, their limbs stretching across the gaps with elegance that seemed effortless. There was no hurry. Every leap was measured, every landing intentional. A mother monkey with her baby clutched to her belly chose a slower route, stepping stone by stone across the gentle current. Her child blinked at the water as it shimmered beneath them, light dancing like silver fish, weaving in and out of sunbeams. Up ahead, two younger monkeys began to play. They chased each other across the boulders, splashing into shallow pools, leaping with tails lifted high like banners in the wind. Each bound was a celebration, each slip a surprise. One of them lost footing and tumbled into a cool basin with a delighted chirp. He surfaced, shaking droplets from his fur, then laughed, not with sound but with eyes and the shake of his shoulders. The others joined him, their movement a dance between stone and stream. The river made space for them. It curved around their feet, welcomed their games, cooled their bodies without protest. On a flat rock in the middle of the stream, the youngest monkey stood tall. She looked from one bank to the other, judging the distance, tail twitching in calculation. Behind her, the elder watched. He said nothing, just waited. She crouched, then leapt. A clean arc through the air, legs extended, arms reaching. She landed with a soft thump, barely a slip, and grinned to herself. There was no applause, there was no need. The river, the stones, the wind through her fur, they all knew. Her leap had mattered. Another monkey splashed nearby, digging a hand into a crevice between two rocks and pulling out a small pebble. He turned it over in his palm, examined it, then dropped it back with care. Nothing was taken, only touched, only known. A dragonfly hovered close to the water, its wings beating so fast they shimmered out of sight. It landed on the tip of a monkey's tail, rested for a heartbeat, then lifted again. A silent guest in a world that allowed only quiet visitors. The rocks themselves glowed in the sun, each one marked by water and time. Some were speckled with lichen, others veined with quartz, all shaped into softness by years of surrender. They did not resist the river. They let it shape them. And in that surrender, they became beautiful. The monkeys felt it. They didn't name it, they didn't explain it, but they moved with it. A shared wisdom between body and stone. One young monkey lay back on a warm slab, his chest rising and falling slowly. He placed his hand in the current and let the water run through his fingers, not to catch it, only to feel it pass. He closed his eyes. Around him, others leapt, ran, drank, rested. The river welcomed all of it. Above, the sky had turned a deeper blue, still calm, still kind, but watching. A bird swooped low over the water, its shadow racing across the surface, breaking for a moment the mirror of the sky before vanishing again. The monkeys paused, then moved on. From rock to rock, they made their way across the river, not in a line, not in a plan, but together. Each leap a note in a song that only the stones could hear, each splash a brush stroke in a moving painting of fur, light, and rhythm. When they reached the far bank, they turned back once more. The river glittered behind them, full of moments they would not carry but would never lose. And as they climbed back into the trees, leaving the boulders behind, the water continued to flow, singing, always singing. The climb away from the river was slow, not because of fatigue, but because the air itself had softened. The sun now leaned gently across the sky, casting longer shadows, filtering through the canopy like golden lace. The monkeys walked in silence, their paws brushing the forest floor, leaving no trace but the memory of movement. They followed an old path, not carved, not marked, but known by foot and scent and story. This was the way to the berry trees. Towering and wise, these trees grew in a quiet circle, their branches stretching like arms to cradle the light. Beneath them, the earth was cool and dappled. The air smelled of soil, ripe fruit, and memory. The monkeys settled in without a word. Some lay back on the moss-covered roots. Others climbed just high enough to dangle their limbs in the breeze. One by one, they plucked berries, deep purple, soft red, sun-warmed. There was no hunger, only taste, no urgency, only presence. The youngest monkey bit into a berry and let the juice trickle down her chin. She giggled, then wiped it with the back of her hand, smearing a faint pink line across her fur. The elder monkey watched from his usual perch, his eyes half closed. He too held a berry, turning it slowly between his fingers before pressing it gently to his lips. It was sweet, but more than that, it was still. It was now. A light breeze stirred the leaves. They whispered to each other in leafy tongues. Stories passed from branch to branch with the patience of trees. Somewhere nearby, a woodpecker tapped softly, not in hunger but in rhythm. Farther still, a monkey sighed, a long, contented sound that melted into the hum of the forest. A mother gently combed her child's fur, her fingers moving slowly, almost sleepily. The child leaned into her, safe, drowsy, small. Overhead, a squirrel darted from branch to branch, kicking tiny seeds into the air. They fluttered down like stars, vanishing into the undergrowth. A young monkey, watching this, reached for one, but let it fall. Not everything needed catching. Not everything needed holding. The forest understood that, and so did they. The monkeys rested, but it was not the kind of rest that comes from exhaustion. It was the rest of alignment, of being exactly where one is meant to be, of belonging, of stillness that comes not from stopping, but from flowing at the pace of life. A dragonfly landed on the elder's knee. He looked at it without moving. Its wings flickered, not quite invisible, not quite still. They shared a moment. Then it flew away. No goodbye, just continuation. The sun dipped lower. Its light turned from gold to amber, its warmth deeper, closer to the skin. The monkeys didn't speak. They never had to. Their rest was their language, their breath, their silence, their togetherness, all part of a quiet truth. That sometimes doing nothing is the most natural thing. That stillness is not emptiness, but a kind of fullness too deep for sound. One monkey stretched out completely, his arm hanging over the edge of a root, fingers brushing the moss. His chest rose, fell. Time moved, but gently. The elder looked up at the trees. These berry givers, these light catchers, he had climbed them when he was young, fallen from them, rested in their shade, watched them bloom and watched them sleep. They had seen more than the monkeys ever would, and yet they asked for nothing. Only stood, only gave, only waited. A monkey rolled over and yawned, his tongue curling, his breath warm. Another scratched her back lazily against the bark of a tree, then lay down with a sigh. There was no goal, no race, no prize, just berries, just shade, just rest, and it was enough. The elder closed his eyes, his berry forgotten in his hand. For now, there was nothing to do, only to be, only to feel the ground beneath them, the leaves above them, the lives beside them. And in this pause, this gentle golden pause, the forest breathed, and the monkeys, still and soft, in the arms of the trees, breathed with it. The light began to change. What had been golden was now turning amber, then deepening into rust. Soft oranges, gentle reds, the color of silence. The trees, once vibrant in the sun, now held their shadows, close like old memories. A breeze drifted through the canopy, not sharp, not loud, but full of knowing. It rustled the leaves as if reminding them that the day was nearly done. The monkeys stirred, not with urgency, but with awareness. They knew the light, they knew the shift. This was the hour of turning, from play to stillness, from motion to memory. The youngest monkey sat upright, watching the beams of light as they stretched longer along the forest floor. Each shadow grew tall, taller than its owners, her soft echoes drawn in charcoal, fading slowly with the tilting sun. The elder monkey stood. His body seemed outlined in gold, a silhouette of fur and wisdom against the growing dusk. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The others watched him, then slowly followed. Their movements were quieter now, measured, thoughtful. No longer chasing, no longer leaping, just walking. The wind brushed through their fur, cooling the warmth of the day. It carried the scent of dusk, fallen leaves, damp bark, a distant hint of rain. Somewhere above, a bird let out a low call, not a warning, not a song, just a note acknowledging the evening. The monkeys moved through shafts of fading light, pausing where the sun still touched the ground, lingering in warmth as if storing it for later. One young monkey sat on a rock and watched her shadow stretch before her. So tall, so still, she waved her hand and the shadow waved back. She tilted her head, and it followed. It was like a game, but quieter, deeper, a reminder that even when light fades, something of us remains. A few monkeys gathered near a fallen log. They sat close, shoulder to shoulder, sharing body heat without thinking about it. A mother wrapped her tail around her sleeping child, cradling him like a nest. The wind moved again. It passed through the grasses, over the stones, between the branches. It didn't ask for attention. It simply was, present, like breath, like heartbeat. The elder paused beneath an old tree, one with roots that curved above the ground like open hands. He placed his hand on the bark, closed his eyes, and stood still. The forest exhaled, and so did he. Far away the sun dipped lower. Its final rays painted the treetops in warm blush, as if the sky itself was saying goodnight. The monkeys didn't rush. They sat in stillness, not sleeping, not talking, just being, letting the evening hold them, letting the light become memory, letting their bodies unwind into the calm that follows a day fully lived. A butterfly floated past, its wings almost invisible in the low light. It paused in the air, hovering for a breath, then disappeared into the hush of dusk. One monkey picked up a stick and traced circles in the dirt, not drawing, just feeling the earth, feeling the moment, feeling herself. The elder opened his eyes and looked at the others. Each one was wrapped in quiet, a soft blanket of presence. They didn't speak, but something passed between them, an unspoken recognition of the sacred hour. Evening, the threshold between what has happened and what will come. The forest dimmed, but not into darkness, into softness. Colors faded into tone, light became texture, and time slowed. The elder turned and began walking toward the higher ground, where the sleeping trees stood tall and still. The others followed, step by step, no hurry, no fear. The day behind them, the night before them, and in between. This pause, this perfect, quiet pause. The path curved upward, gently at first as if asking permission, then more firmly rising through clusters of ferns and low-hanging vines toward the forest's crown. The monkeys walked in single file, not by rule, but by instinct. This was not a climb for chatter nor for play. This was ascent. The air grew cooler with each step upward, thinner, still full of scent, but now tinged with altitude, with distance. The leaves here were older, their edges curled, their colors faded into time, each one a whisper, a memory, a testament to seasons past. At the top of the hill stood the tree. It didn't announce itself, it didn't glow, it didn't shine, and yet it was known. Its trunk was wide enough to shelter 3 monkeys side by side. Its roots curled outward like waves, gripping the earth with a stillness that spoke of centuries. No one knew who had found it first. No one knew how long it had been here. It had always been, just as it was now. The monkeys approached slowly, their steps light, almost reverent. The elder was the first to reach it. He bowed his head, not out of habit, but out of something deeper, respect, perhaps, or love. He pressed one palm to the bark. It was rough, it was warm, it was alive. The others joined him. One by one, they touched the tree. Not all at once, not to be seen, but because it felt right, because this tree held stories. It had watched over their kind long before memory. It had seen storms and sunrises, births and disappearances, and still it stood. Its branches stretched toward the sky, yet never begged the light. They simply reached, patient, steady. A young monkey sat beneath it and looked up. The canopy above her was a mosaic of shadow and star. Between the rustling leaves, the first evening stars had begun to appear, soft and unsure like children waking from a nap. The elder sat beside the tree, his back resting against the trunk. His breathing matched the forest's, not deep, not shallow, just enough. One by one, the others found their places, not assigned, not chosen, just felt. They sat on roots, on earth, on stones shaped by time. Together, but not crowded, united, but still whole. A silence settled over the group, not empty, but full of presence, of memory, of belonging. The wind circled once more, a gentle dance around the tree, then quieted. Birds had gone still. Insects whispered in rhythms. From a distance, an owl called, not to startle, but to say, "I am here too." The elder looked around. His eyes touched each face. The young with fur still soft from sleep, the mothers with gazes deep as rivers, the restless now quiet, the curious now still, all here, all present. The tree watched them as it always had, but tonight it seemed to listen more closely, as if storing something. This moment, this stillness, this breath of peace in the folds of its memory. A leaf drifted down. It spun once in the air, caught the last light of the sky, then landed beside the elder's foot. He picked it up, turned it over in his hand, and smiled. not for a reason, not for a story, just because it felt true. A few monkeys closed their eyes, not in sleep, but in rest, letting their minds lean against the quiet, letting their hearts find rhythm in the hush. A mother cradled her little one. He blinked slowly, then tucked his face into her side. The tree stood above them, its leaves rustling soft prayers into the night. No one spoke. No one moved. Time folded inward like the petals of a flower at dusk, like a breath drawn deep, then held. There was nowhere to go, nothing to reach for. Only this hill, this tree, this togetherness. The elder placed the leaf beside him and let his eyes close, not to leave the world, but to enter it more fully, through stillness, through silence, through the sacred.
The sky had deepened from blue to ink, a shade so complete it seemed to absorb even thought. No breeze now, no rustling, only the occasional sound of a leaf shifting in its sleep or a branch and creaking under its own memory. And then, as if on cue, the first star appeared. It was small, soft, a pinprick of silver above the treetops, not announcing itself, but simply being there. A young monkey noticed it first. She gasped, not aloud, but inward. Her wide eyes reflected the starlight like two still ponds. She tapped her brother's shoulder, pointed upward, and they both sat in silence, watching that tiny shimmer. One star, and then another, then three, then a whole river of light trickling across the sky. The Milky Way whispering its stories to those still awake. The elder opened his eyes. He looked up, not with wonder, but with recognition, as if greeting an old friend. He had seen these stars before, many nights, many seasons. They had changed, as all things do, but they had also stayed. Anchors, witnesses. He remembered watching them from his youth with his own father beneath this same sacred tree. He smiled again and placed his hand on the earth. The ground was cool now, firm, real. A small monkey crawled toward him, her eyes heavy but her spirit still curious. She didn't speak, she just curled beside him, her small hand resting on his fur. The elder didn't move, but his presence wrapped around her like a blanket. Words were no longer needed. The forest seemed to agree. Birds had long since gone quiet. Insects now hummed in slow, steady intervals. Even the trees had stopped moving, their limbs still as statues leaning into the hush. One mother monkey leaned back and exhaled, slowly, softly. Her breath misted slightly in the cool air, then vanished, like a thought not spoken. She looked at her son, asleep against her shoulder, and traced a gentle circle on his back. Not to wake him, just to remember that he was there. Nearby, an elder monkey turned to another, his mate of many years, and met her eyes. There was no sound, but something passed between them, something too deep for speech. A thank you, a remembrance, a knowing, a wordless word. The first star continued to shine, now joined by dozens more. The sky had become a mirror, reflecting not just light but stillness. One young monkey reached toward the sky, not to touch but to imagine. He extended his hand, fingers splayed, then closed them as if catching a piece of night. And in that moment he felt big and small, infinite and held. The elder noticed him, nodded once, slowly, deeply, the kind of nod that says, "I see you, and what you feel is real." Another leaf fell, then another. They didn't hurry, they didn't aim. They simply floated, like thoughts that had no place to land except here. A young monkey whispered something, barely audible. No one answered, but everyone heard, even the stars. The sacred tree above them stood still. Its branches, a silhouette against the cosmos, seemed to cradle the monkeys below. Not sheltering, but witnessing. A witness to presence, to peace, to this unspoken unity beneath the stars. The elder placed his hand on his heart, then on the earth. The gesture was ancient, older than words, older than memory, and in that gesture was the last word of the day. Not a word at all, but a truth. The star above them twinkled, not for attention, but for rhythm. And slowly, very slowly, the monkeys began to close their eyes. Not because they were told to, not because they had to, but because it was time. The forest agreed, the sky agreed, even the wind, invisible and eternal, agreed. The first star watched. The last word had been spoken, without a sound.
Night didn't fall. It arrived. Quietly, like a breath held for just a moment longer than usual, it came not all at once, but in layers. First, the edges of the sky darkened, not black, but deep indigo, the color of soft velvet and forgotten thoughts. Then came the hush. Not silence, but something deeper. The kind of quiet that makes you realize how many things you've been holding without noticing. One by one, the monkeys shifted in place. The youngest had curled into a ball, arms tucked beneath her chin, tail wrapped gently around her legs like a blanket sewn by instinct. A little further away, a pair of older monkeys leaned into each other, not for warmth, but for presence. No one needed to say good night. The forest said it for them, in the way the wind slowed, in the way the stars blinked patiently overhead, and the sacred tree, the great keeper of their stories, stood sentinel above them all, its bark still warm from the day, its roots cradling the earth like memory cradles time. The elder sat with his eyes half closed. He wasn't sleeping, not yet. He was listening to the breath of the trees, to the pause between each chirp, to the space where nothing was said but everything was known. In that pause, the night unfolded, like a scroll written in ink too dark to read by day. He thought of his childhood, blur of branches, a world filled with climbing and falling and learning what to trust. He remembered his mother's voice, though not the words, just the rhythm, like a lullaby hummed by leaves. He thought of the first time he saw the stars and mistook them for holes in the sky, where the light behind everything was peeking through. A soft rustle interrupted his thoughts. A young monkey, still half awake, shuffled over and nestled beside him. Her fur brushed his side. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The elder placed one hand gently on her back. A simple touch, full of things that couldn't be said. I see you. I remember you. You're safe. Nearby, the sacred tree groaned softly, as if stretching its limbs toward the stars. Above, the constellations shimmered, telling stories only the wind could understand. And perhaps the dreams of monkeys. One by one, eyelids grew heavy. Heads dipped forward. Tails stopped twitching. The forest didn't demand rest. It offered it like a gift left on a doorstep with no name. Somewhere in the distance, a stream murmured its endless lullaby. Water on stone, time on time. Its sound wasn't loud, but constant, comforting, like a memory that comes not to disturb, but to soothe. The elder inhaled deeply. The air was thick with earth and moonlight, and in that breath he felt everything. The weight of the day, the lightness of letting go, and the strange ache of being alive and at peace. Night had not fallen. It had wrapped itself around them like a memory, not sharp, not urgent, just there, present, like the feeling of fur against fur, of starlight against skin, As he exhaled, his thoughts quieted. There was nothing more to do, nothing to protect, nothing to carry. Only this moment, this hush, this sacred in-between. He closed his eyes, and night became everything.
Sleep didn't arrive with a thud. It floated in eases like mist over warm earth, like a sigh exhaled by the moon. Under the sacred tree, the last rustle had faded. No movement, no voices, only breath, soft, slow, invisible. And then, beneath the thick net of leaves and stars, dreams began. Not loud, not colorful, but whole. They arrived without footsteps, without permission, and yet they belonged, as if they had been waiting all along. A young monkey stirred. Her eyes fluttered, but did not open. Inside her mind, she was no longer in the tree. She was in the river, floating, weightless. Beneath her, fish shimmered like thoughts. Above her, birds glided like forgotten songs. She smiled, not with her lips, but with her soul. Elsewhere, her brother dreamt too, of running through golden light, chasing shadows that danced just out of reach. He laughed in his sleep, a sound so soft it blended with the rustle of a leaf. The elder slept, but his dreams were different, not wild, not fast. They were deep, like roots that remember storms, like stones that remember footsteps. He saw faces, some he knew, some he didn't. He saw himself as a child dangling from the very branch he now slept beneath. He saw the first time he had tasted banana. He saw his own father watching the stars with a gaze that held both sadness and peace. And in that dream, the elder smiled because he understood something he could never say aloud, something words would never fit. The sacred tree dreamed too. Yes, trees dream, not in images, but in feelings, in memory. It remembered centuries of monkeys, their births, their climbs, their cries, their quiet. It dreamed of sun and rain and thunder and tiny fingers, gripping bark with absolute trust. And the tree was not sad. It did not miss the past. It simply held it, like the earth holds seeds, like night holds stars. The temple below dreamed as well. Its stones, worn smooth by prayer, hummed in frequencies only the divine could hear. The soundless bells, the scent of incense still clinging to ancient walls, the echo of chants that had once filled its halls. It all folded into the night, into the dreams of monkeys and trees and stones. Time was gone. Or maybe it was everything. The forest became a cradle, the stars became lullabies, and above all this the moon watched, not as a guard, but as a witness, a keeper of dreams. A young monkey twitched. Her fingers moved as if grasping something invisible, a fruit, a leaf, a thought. No one would ever know, but it mattered, because in dreams, even the smallest action holds weight. The elder's breathing slowed. His dream had led him to the river. He sat at its edge, watching the current carry away time itself. Leaves drifted by, each one a moment he had once lived, a first step, a fall, a joy, a goodbye. He watched and felt no pain, just gratitude. The dream didn't end. It melted into deeper sleep, into silence, so complete it could only be called peace. And so they lay, one by one, wrapped in night, in memory, in dreams, not apart but together, not lost but held. Beneath the canopy, where time forgets to pass and the stars remember everything they slept, and the dream continued. The forest had fallen still, no rustle, no wing, no breeze, as if even the wind had fallen asleep. But still, there was something, a hum beneath silence, a whisper inside stillness, a presence too old for time, too gentle to wake anyone. It came from the tree, not the way branches creak, not the way leaves flutter. No, this sound came from deeper, from the roots, from memory. The sacred tree was not sleeping. It never truly slept. It rested, yes, but its spirit remained awake. And on this night, as moonlight curved softly through its limbs, the tree began to remember, not in pictures, not in words, in echoes. Each knot in its bark held a story, each ring inside its trunk, a lifetime recorded in the language of wood. The tree recalled a night much like this centuries ago, when another monkey clan slept in its arms. It had rained that day. The scent of wet bark still lingered in a memory that no tongue could name. One baby monkey had been afraid of thunder. She'd wrapped herself around the elder's neck, shivering until the storm passed. That touch still lived in the tree, that warmth, that small act of trust. Another echo, a prayer once whispered by a temple priest below. He had placed his hand on the tree's base and whispered a word only the tree heard. It meant thank you, and the tree never forgot. That word now shimmered in the air, not heard but felt. Gratitude lives longer than speech. Further back still, the tree remembered fire, not destructive, sacred. Small lamps once hung from its lowest limbs, lit by the women of the village to honor a festival of light. Children had danced beneath its shadow. Their laughter tickled its roots. That laughter returned now, not loud, just a flicker of joy beneath the skin of night. The tree remembered loss too. A windstorm had once broken its highest branch. The sky had wept, and for weeks the monkeys had stayed away. But time had healed, and the branch had regrown. Not the same, but stronger in its bend. This was the wisdom the tree carried, that all things break, and all things become something new. Tonight, it whispered that lesson to the sleeping monkeys, not aloud, just through its bark, its breath, its being. The youngest monkey, though asleep, stirred. She curled tighter, as if cradled by something she couldn't name. She was, by the tree, by its memories, by its stories, by its quiet promise that nothing was ever truly forgotten. The moon moved slowly across the sky, casting shadows that stretched then faded into the forest floor. Beneath it, the tree pulsed, not with light, not with sound, with knowing. It knew of births, of deaths, of the first rainfall after drought. It had seen the sky change color 1,000 times. It had listened to birds repeat the same songs in different generations. It had stood when others fell, and it would stand for many nights more. But tonight, it stood not as a witness, but as a keeper. It kept the dreams of those it held. It kept the echoes of all who had come before. It kept the silence of this perfect night. And in that silence, everything spoke. Not in voices, but in presence, in peace. The forest did not need words. It had echoes. And the sacred tree was full of them. They shimmered like starlight in bark, like memories that smiled quietly in their sleep. Night was still draped across the jungle. Something had changed. It wasn't sound. It wasn't light. It was breath. The forest had taken a new breath, a long, silent inhale, as if preparing for what would come. The moon still lingered, but fainter now, washed thin by the promise of morning. The stars blinked slower, as though gently fading into sleep themselves, and beneath them the sacred tree stood still, not asleep, not awake, but watching. In its limbs, the monkey family slept, all of them, curled, stretched, nestled into one another like scattered puzzle pieces fitting perfectly, even in dreams. But the air around them had shifted. It wasn't cold anymore. It was
soft, as if the sky itself had wrapped them in a silken shawl. The first bird didn't sing. It sighed. Just a note, barely a sound, but enough to stir the leaves. A breeze followed. It came not with urgency, but with affection. It didn't wake anything it touched. A leaf turned, a petal shivered. The sleeping baby monkey gripped her mother's fur just a little tighter, still asleep. But the dream had changed. It now had edges, the soft kind that dissolves slowly into waking. Far in the east, a hue appeared. Not pink, not gold, just less dark. The trees noticed it first. Their shadows shortened, then deepened, then slowly faded into nothing. The temple, too, seemed to stretch. The stones, cool and quiet, breathed the dawn in through their pores. The sacred bells, silent for hours, quivered. Not ringing, but remembering sound, as if rehearsing their voices for later. Inside the temple's shadow, the old priest still slept. But even he in his dreams turned toward the light, because dawn is not an event. It's a call, and everything that breathes knows its voice. The elder monkey stirred, just slightly. His ear twitched. His chest rose deeper. No thoughts, no memories, just the rhythm of something ancient resurfacing. His dreams thinned. The river in his mind became air. The stars in his sleep became wind, and though his eyes did not open, his heart did. Elsewhere, a branch creaked. A baby monkey yawned in her sleep, showing tiny teeth to no one. A dewdrop fell from leaf to ground, the jungle's version of a morning bell. Still no one fully woke, not yet. Because dawn, though beautiful, is patient. It doesn't push, it waits. Like a mother at the door, watching her children sleep, knowing they will rise when they're ready. So it waited, and while it waited, it painted. Light along the bark, warmth across the stones, color in the sky that wasn't there before. The forest bathed in it. Not loud, not sudden, a gentle embrace. The arms of dawn. The first true light did not fall from the sky. It rose from the earth. It shimmered on the wet bark of the sacred tree. It kissed the temple stones with a golden whisper, like fingers brushing dust from an ancient text. The jungle exhaled, not from effort, but from wonder. For light, when it first arrives, is not loud, it is reverent, and everything it touches becomes holy. The sacred stone at the base of the temple glowed before it gleamed. It pulsed, as if remembering every morning it had ever survived. Thousands of mornings, thousands of lights, but each one knew that was the miracle of daybreak. It never repeated itself, the same trees, the same stones, and yet never the same morning. Today's light had a softness the others hadn't. It was slower, more deliberate, as though it knew this moment mattered. The monkey family stirred, not all at once, never all at once. First, the youngest, her fingers unclenched from her mother's fur, then the elder, a deep, contented sigh through his nose, not yet awake, but not asleep either. The in-between. Their eyes remained closed, but their ears listened. To what? The rustle of leaves, the hum of bees in the distance, the faint clink of a priest's sandals on stone. Down below, the old Swami had risen. He stood barefoot in the temple courtyard, his robe pale against the warming sky. In his hands, a brass tray. On it, 3 ripe bananas, a cup of water, a single marigold. He faced the east. The sun had not yet cleared the hills, but the light had. It touched his cheeks, it bathed his hands. It blessed the offering before a single word was spoken. Then came the prayer, not loud, not forced, just breath and intention. a string of syllables older than language, spoken into the morning like seeds into soil. And the stone listened. It always had. Above, the monkeys felt it, not the words, the reverence. They didn't know prayers, but they knew stillness. They knew what it meant when the air changed. They knew when something important was happening. The elder monkey sat up, his eyes opened. They were dark, reflective, and still. He did not move, he watched. Below, the Swami placed the tray at the foot of the altar. He stepped back, hands together, head bowed. For a moment, even time paused. Then, a breeze, not cold, not warm, balanced. It swept through the temple like a sigh, lifting the marigold petals, curling through the sacred tree. The youngest monkey sneezed, a tiny sound, barely there, but it broke the spell and everything resumed. The Swami smiled. Above, the elder monkey blinked slowly. Then, with grace earned through time, he descended, not in haste, not in hunger, in rhythm, from branch to stone. He arrived in silence. The Swami did not flinch. He never did. Instead, he stepped aside. The monkey approached the tray. He picked one banana, only one. Then he looked up. For a moment, their eyes met. Human, animal, both aware, both present. No fear, no expectation, just recognition. The monkey turned. He climbed back, the banana held gently in his hand. As he rose, others followed. One by one, the monkey family awoke. They stretched, they blinked, they moved, but never rushed. The day had begun, not with noise, not with urgency, with sacred stone, with shared breath, with light that touched everything, as if it were touching it for the first time. The sun had begun its descent, casting long shadows across the jungle floor. The air grew thicker but gentler. The buzz of insects softened, the colors dimmed, not with sorrow but with surrender. It was time to return. The monkey family, still warm from the day's wandering, began their slow journey back toward the sacred tree. Not all at once, they moved in pairs, the youngest trailing behind, pausing often to glance at butterflies or chew on bits of bark with no real urgency. The elder led, not with command, but with quiet confidence. He knew the way, he always had. The path was not straight. It never was. But every bend, every leap, every soft branch was familiar. Below them, the temple awaited. Its stone steps had cooled, the brass tray now empty, a marigold petal drifting on the ground like a prayer released. The Swami had long since returned inside, his voice now a memory, his song absorbed by the listening walls. The sacred bell chimed once, a final note for the day, not calling, not commanding, just closing. The monkeys climbed higher, their limbs tired but not strained, their movements slower but not weak. The youngest yawned mid-swing, dangling upside down for a moment before righting herself with a lazy twist. Laughter. If there is such a thing as monkey laughter, it lives in these moments, unguarded, suspended in leaf-dappled light. Soon they reached the tree, their tree. It had not changed. It never did. But somehow it always felt new when they returned. Home is like that. They settled. First the elder, finding his usual spot, a thick branch with a gentle curve. Then the others, each in their place, each close enough to touch, but not needing to. The baby curled into her mother. A brother leaned against a sister. The elder closed his eyes without a sound. Above them, the sky shifted. The golden hue of dusk bled into lavender, then indigo, then the deep velvet of night. A star appeared, then another and another, until the sky itself seemed to exhale light, not to shine but to soothe. The jungle, too, responded. The leaves no longer danced. They rested. The branches no longer creaked, they held. Even the wind, playful just hours before, had grown still, and in that stillness, sleep arrived, not abruptly, not as an end, but as a return.
Because rest is not retreat. It is reunion with breath, with body, with the rhythm that began long before the day did. And so the monkey family slept above the temple, among the leaves, cradled by a world that had watched them from dawn to dusk and now held them in the dark. There were no alarms, no worries, no to-do lists, only breath, only quiet, only peace. The tree stood guard. The temple whispered prayers, the stars blinked their silent blessings upon the earth below, and in the canopy, curled into one another, the monkeys dreamed, not of adventure, not of food, but of this moment, this rest, this perfect return. Because rest is not retreat. It is reunion with breath, with body, with the rhythm that began long before the day did. And so the monkey family slept above the temple, among the leaves, cradled by a world that had watched them from dawn to dusk and now held them in the dark. There were no alarms, no worries, no to-do lists, only breath, only quiet, only peace. The tree stood guard. The temple whispered prayers, the stars blinked their silent blessings upon the earth below, and in the canopy, curled into one another, the monkeys dreamed, not of adventure, not of food, but of this moment, this rest, this perfect return. Everything you are has always been enough, even in sleep, especially in sleep. So close your eyes fully now, if they're not already. Let your hands rest, let your breath deepen, let the night carry you, like the tree carries its leaves, like the stars carry our wishes. You don't need to think anymore. You've made it to the end of the story. But the story itself has no end. It simply continues in your dreams. Good night, sleep well, and may peace walk beside you in every breath that follows.